Grow Cook Eat is proudly sponsored by Board Bia and StopFoodWaste.ie.
Well, Michael Kelly, you cannot beat an empty bed. It must be the start of a growing year.
We're back in Grow HQ here in Waterford for another year of growing, cooking and eating.
This year, the 7 veg we're growing are
Onions, pumpkins, sweet corn, courgettes, kale, French beans and spicy chilies, making each vegetable the star of the show.
We'll be teaching you how to grow like a pro.
Look at these beauties.
As well as travelling far and wide to find the best food stories from around the country. Is everybody hungry?
Then it's into the kitchen for our favourite part, the taste test.
Yum.
So what are we waiting for?
Let's get growing.
So Karen, why do you think Mr. Potato had a mobile phone?
Oh, I don't know why.
In case Mr. Onion rings.
Oh my God. Well, Michael Kelly, at least you're better at growing vegetables than you are at telling jokes. So stick to the day job, dude. But yes, you are talking about onions, which is what tonight's episode is all about.
To kick off this season, we'll be peeling back the layers of one of the easiest veg to grow and cook, onions.
And with my son Nicky, I'll be giving a crash course in keeping hens.
I'll be checking out a really cool farmers market held in a very unusual location in Cork City.
This year, Chef Katie Sanderson is helping out in the Grow Cook Eat kitchen, putting the veg from the garden front and centre.
Okay, so we're ready to go with onions. The first thing to go into the ground this year. As easy as garlic, actually, from last year. So great return.
Yeah.
Very low maintenance.
Yeah.
Unlike himself. So yeah, what do we need to do?
Yeah, really straightforward crop and fantastic. So because we're growing from sets, which we'll talk about in a second, there's not a huge amount of ground preparation to do, but a very simple thing just to kind of get it a little bit flat. So we're giving it a little bit of a hoe to loosen up the soil first. And you give it a little bit of a rake then. But we're not sowing seeds here, so we don't need to be worried about it being, you know, hyper flat. The other thing we need to think about is feeding, right? So we did get some compost onto this soil before Christmas, so there's lots of nutrition in it, but we're just going to give it a little bit of a helping hand, have a bit of a smell of that.
Oh, Michael Kelly.
So these are poultry manure pellets, which are a bit stinky, but fantastic.
Very stinky.
Organic general fertilizers, so I'm going to get you to do that.
Thanks.
So we just need about a handful per square yard and just sprinkle them on the surface of the soil like that, yeah?
Is it potassium that onions really love?
It is
and
indeed, yeah. So potassium is basically what onions need and helps them to store for longer.
Okay.
So this is a seaweed feed. And again, same thing, same application. So we're doing just about a handful per square yard.
Oh yeah.
So just get our rake now and just give that a little bit of a rake in. Yeah, nice and even there, that's it. So we're ready to get our sets now and get sown.
So this is a set.
Yeah.
How come we're growing onions from sets and not seed?
These are basically immature onions that someone else has grown from seed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? If you want to grow them from seed, you have to start much earlier in the year, like January.
Yeah. So, do you remember when we were chitting the potatoes last year, which was a good thing? This is not good for onion sets.
Exactly. So, generally speaking, anything that's already sprouted like that, it's not a good idea to even try planting it. You're also trying to get a nice round onion. The size of it is not that important. And obviously anything soft, like this one is kind of starting to rot. So you definitely don't want that, yeah?
So I think you were saying that there's going to be about 10 per row?
Yeah, so our spacing is, the rows are 25 centimetres apart, which is, this board is exactly that width. So the spacing in the row determines how big an onion you get, but the best yield is from about 10 centimetres apart, right?
Okay.
So we do our row along here like that, along the edge of the board. And with onion sets, this end, the flat edge is where it's going to take root from. And we just literally stick them down so that the kind of tip is showing, about half the onion is showing above the surface of the soil. And then 10 centimetres over, you do the same again. Then we're going to flip our board over. And you can go with with a row of your red ones then. And the other thing, as is always the case, Karen, as we know, is your label. These are the red barn row and the stirring onions there as well. They should be good to go now.
Nice, good, easy.
Yeah. If it's very cold when you're sowing, you might want to wait till things warm up to about 10 degrees. Now I'm laying down a fleece to protect our onions from any unexpected freezes and those pesky pigeons.
So Mick has gone in for a coffee and I've taken the opportunity to schnaffle the few sets, that were left over from the raised bed. The good news is if you don't have any space, you can still have the onion growing experience because they do actually grow well in a container, just not to full-sized onions. So we're actually going to grow them side by side, really closely together. If you are growing them outside, they're fine. But if you're going to grow them inside, don't forget to keep on top of watering them. So in 6 weeks' time, we're going to have some delicious scallion-y type things that are going to knock Mick Kelly's socks off.
We all love to eat our eggs, and there's over 2 million of these laying hens in Ireland producing all of those fantastic eggs. Here in the Grow Cook Eat garden, we've got our own 2 hens, Thelma and Louise. But what might surprise you is how straightforward it is to keep a couple of these in your own garden. At home, we've a few hens, and while looking after them is simple enough, there are a few things to remember.
So yes, this is exactly what I imagined it would look like to keep hens at this scale. It's absolutely beautiful with all this space. But we don't all have access to a lovely field. So how much space do you actually need per hen?
Yeah, so the rule of thumb is about 8 to 10 foot per hen. Most suburban back gardens could, really happily keep a couple of hens that have plenty of space.
On grass though, you have to have grass.
I think grass is really important. Like, they love foraging around. They literally will do it all day long. Once they've laid their egg in the morning, they spend the rest of the day foraging. So keeping them in cages the way batteries are, it's really, really cruel. So there's a couple of things about this, right? The first thing is kind of mobility. You need to be able to move it around fresh grass all the time, right?
Okay, so being on wheels.
This one is on wheels. Security is the second thing. So there's a little ramp for the hens to get up into. You pull that up and it locks them up at night time. So they're perfectly secure from foxes, yes? Inside then, a couple of things to think about. One is the perch. So because they like to roost, they like getting up about 8 or 10 inches off the ground. And then the other thing is the nesting box. So they go in there to lay their eggs, and they like the bit of privacy as well. So that's why the nesting boxes are kind of quite secure and quite kind of secluded.
Wood shavings?
Yeah, these are shavings. You can use straw, you can use newspaper, anything that's going to kind of absorb the poo, basically.
Oh.
Yeah, not very nice. You pick that up with your hands, though, if you want to. The real hen expert in our house is my son, Nicky. He's in charge of all the hen keeping activities, which keeps him very busy.
In the morning when they get up, they're very hungry, so you have to throw food out for them.
What do you feed them?
Organic hemp pellets
or
scraps of food from your kitchen.
What about water? Do they need lots of water?
Yeah, one hen drinks a litre a day.
A litre of water a day? What about then the eggs like? So how many eggs are you getting a day?
8 a day.
But we wouldn't eat 8 eggs a day in our house, even though we love them. So what do you do with the ones we have left over then?
I put them out in the gate honesty box.
So you put, say, 6 eggs out. How much is it for 6 eggs?
€3.
€3. So you're trusting people to put €3 in. And do they always do that?
Yeah.
They're very honest. So you must be making a ton of money. How much money have you made from this hen business that you have?
I can't tell you.
Why not?
It's business.
Oh, it's delicious. What, 24 hours after it's been laid?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fresh as fresh can be.
I'll tell you, Michael Kelly, I'm
convinced?
Thelma and Louise are coming home with me to Ladies Bridge.
Fair enough.
I am going to keep hens.
Delighted.
Grow Cook Eat is proudly sponsored by StopFoodWaste.ie and Bord Bia. Grow Cook Eat is proudly sponsored by Board Bia and StopFoodWaste.ie.
It's been 5 weeks since we planted our onions. Time for a checkup with Mick.
So yeah, like these are doing great, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really
happy with
good.
them. So the fleece cover came off, I'd say about 2 weeks ago or so. So the only thing, you know the way you're always slagging me about my kind of...
Me, slag you?
Yeah.
Never.
My really attention to detail when it comes to spacing.
Yes.
But the beauty of having the really lovely neat spacing, apart
You're going to tell me there's method to your madness
Yeah,
now?
there is.
Okay.
It means you can run the hoe up and down between the rows. And the key with this is to hoe before you see any weeds.
Okay.
So that's literally all there is to it, really, with.
Good, good, good. Now,
Yeah.
at the same time as we put these directly into the ground, we also sowed some in a container. Would you mind? Sorry.
Yeah. Your Majesty, I'll just step out of shop
Yes,
for 1
Queen
second.
Bee. Okay, so look at these beauties. I'm only going to harvest about half of them, do you reckon? And then see how the other ones get on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, another 3 weeks they'll be fine in that container.
And again, they just, like, gently, obviously, because you
Yeah.
need to be mindful of them. But, oh yeah, look, this is perfect. So the set is just kind of rotting away. But if you peel that off, and then we have the really lovely scallion just underneath.
You can sow and harvest from a container all the way through the summer for a continuous supply of fresh scallions.
I know what you're thinking. Where is she and what in the name of God is she doing? Well, I'm actually here to go to a farmer's market. And yes, I am outside a shopping centre. And yes, I'm going to go into the car park of the shopping centre. But trust me, there is a brilliant farmer's market happening here. This is a fantastic market. It looks like there's about 50 stalls here today selling everything from bread to cheese to vegetables to Ethiopian food. Tell us a little bit about it.
The market's been running for about 11 years now. We have loads of customers, there's a great atmosphere, and so people come down every week and do their shopping here.
Well, there's a few things that have caught both my eyes and my nose, and I'm like dying to taste them. So I think we might go for a little wander
Yeah,
around and chat to
enjoy.
people. So when you're here, you're meeting people like me and all the other legends coming up to the market today. Do you find it's a great opportunity to chat?
That's what the farmers market is all about. Talking to your customer, meeting your customer, you nearly know all about their family life and their children and everything.
Dave, you are a local farmer based out in Carricktool.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
7 miles away. That's how far my vegetables travel from the field, 7 miles.
So you cannot get fresher.
Correct.
And have you anybody that's been coming religiously week in, week out over the 1990s?
Oh, I have, yeah. Sure, but I mean, the same people come, and it doesn't matter. Like, if it's pouring rain, because they want to get a proper carrot, and they're fresh, they'll taste the difference.
So come here, you're here from Greenfield Farm.
Greenfield Farm,
And
yeah.
selling beautiful salads that you literally harvested this morning.
Yeah, that's every morning before the market we always pick our own salads and all that. So that's why people come here. Like they come here for, obviously meet the people, and it's a great experience and good food. That's what it's all about. Like most vegetables you buy in the supermarket, it's very best. It's about 10 to 14 days old.
Okay.
And then the next question is like how much nutrition is actually in that food? Very little,
Yeah.
Whereas like you come to the market, like we're saying, we pick the salad that morning time. It's on your table at evening. It's living food.
This is amazing. Like, how long have you had your stall at the market?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Having a restaurant or, a sort of bricks and mortar place to sell food is so expensive. The overheads
is.
are massive.
It
so
is
does
very
this mean you can,
expensive.
it must be much easier to do it from a farmer's market in some ways.
Very easy. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, it's not easy throwing up gazebos and tables and lugging all this stuff from the van.
It's worth
but-
it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Didn't I tell you there was an unbelievable amount of producers in this car park? So clearly we've seen how committed they are. We've seen the amazing array of food, fresh, local, seasonal, smells and tastes absolutely delicious. I've done a bit of my weekly shop. I'm about to have Ethiopian food for my lunch. And where else would you get it if not at a farmer's market? It's fair to say it's been a pretty mad year weather-wise, definitely for growing. We're currently here in July at about 28 degrees heat.
I heard this morning on the radio that we've got a There's no moisture whatsoever in the soil down to about 10 centimetres in depth, which is unbelievable, has never happened before.
Yeah, drought conditions.
Drought conditions, that's why the grass is not growing, and you know, not a big deal for us, but for commercial growers, that's serious stuff.
Yeah.
For us though here, it's just about manageable despite all the kind of restrictions on watering. We're able to kind of target it at things that really need it, and also just being a bit smart about it, like watering first thing in the morning, watering last thing at night, so you get the most out of your water. I won't say we're praying for rain yet.
No,
but
not quite there.
Not far off. We're enjoying the ice cream for
yeah.
now. To cope with the heat, we've got our ice cream, but the onions need to cool off too. They usually don't need a lot of water, but with weather like this, a good soaking can't hurt.
A month on and it's still warm and dry. The onions are doing great, but there's still some things we need to keep an eye on.
The only other thing we talked about this the last time is weeding. They hate weeding. With hoeing, you need to be very careful. You can hoe in the rows, but in close, you need to be really, really careful, because if you hoe too close to them, you're going to damage the roots. And if you damage the roots, you're going to set them back. So there's very little weeds in this bed. There's one. It's there almost like a prototype.
Have you been out like 24/7?
I placed it there. But that weed is actually just, they don't like weed competition at all, so you as well just pull that out. We're just going to give them a bit of a watering, and that's pretty much that. And these are going to be fine for another couple of weeks. So
Should
hopefully.
I hold out your hand there for a sec?
So this looks like a bull in a china shop kind of has been through here, or Karen in a china shop as we like to call it. But actually this happens completely naturally with onions, because what's happening is there's a kind of a nutrient tug of war happening between the bulb and the stem, and it's pulling all the nutrients down here, which is why these are starting to collapse and fall over down into the bulb, which is where you want them, obviously. So what we do, you can eat these onions as they are now, no problem, but to get them to store, we need to dry them out a little bit first. The only thing to bear in mind, is really simple with harvesting, but what you need to do, rather than kind of pulling them out of the ground, which will break the neck and probably means they'll rot in storage, which we don't want, you just kind of twist them gently in the soil like that, so that they come out nice and easily. So we're just going to go through, get these out of the soil, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my box that I'm sitting on to just stack them up on, right? Because if they're sitting on kind of wet soil, that's not going to help with them with the drying process. You don't mind them getting wet every now and then, but they need to be able to dry out as well. And from a relatively small space, raised bed, you've got to be happy with that for a crop of onions.
Okay, I'm not often at a loss, but seriously, what are we doing with a crate full of perfectly good onions? A random piece of string hanging off a glass?
Sure, it's self-explanatory.
No, it's not. What are we doing?
So these are ready to store now, right? So basically we get just a strong piece of string or a rope, right? We do a little loop at the end, get your onion and stick it in there into that loop. So this is your kind of, is it starting to become clear to you now?
Oh yeah, crystal.
No? So this is our anchor onion.
Okay.
And then we just get another one. So then you kind of wrap the stem round.
Okay, so once we have the lovely braided onions
hanging in the kitchen, looking lovely.
Wearing your stripy top and ooh-la-laing it.
Yeah.
How long will they last for?
These will last probably till, I find around February, March, they start to get a bit soft.
Yeah.
So this, another 4 or 5 hours of this and we'll be done. And we're done. Hurrah!
I will never get that 40 minutes of my life back ever again. Oh my word.
Your life's not that interesting anyway. Time to head in to our new resident chef, Katie Sanderson. She's going to make the perfect brunch with our onions and a couple of Nicky's eggs.
First thing we're going to do is put our pot on the heat. So we're going to put that on while we're chopping our onions to get it really nice and hot so that we can get a really nice char on the onions. We're just chopping them in half and then in threes because we want really big chunky bits for the eggs. It looks like loads of onions, but once they've been reduced down and they've kind of got all caramelized, it will look like a lot less. I'm just going to put this stuff in the compost. So I'm going to get some olive oil. I'm going to be generous enough with the oil. And I'm going to put my onion straight in, and I'm going to resist the urge to move the pan at all or to move it with a spoon or anything. I really, really want a black char on one side. That's what you're looking for. We'll leave them for about a minute to get black on one side, and then we can turn them over to the other side. Then we're going to turn the heat down and let them caramelize. I'm just going to chop my garlic, same again, little rough pieces. So add those guys in at the same time. Yeah, and you've got a really nice char and caramelization on them. And now I'm going to turn the heat right down. It's probably going to be about 25 minutes for them to cook. Really perfect recipe for kind of lounging around, maybe grab a coffee, read the papers, and then come back to it. They're looking great. You've got these really nice kind of dark bits at the edge. There's a really nice caramelization, and the onions are really soft. So I'm going about 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of cumin and 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of paprika. Next up, we're going to chop our tomatoes. We're adding the tomatoes to this dish to make it a little bit more saucier. A lot of people are familiar with shakshuka, which is using like tinned tomatoes, and you cut the onions really small. So it's a similar type of dish, but just everything's a bit more chunky, and we're using fresh tomatoes grown in the greenhouse outside. So I'm going to get all these tomatoes into the pan. I really love this way of cooking where it's all in the one pot, not too much mess, and using really nice fresh ingredients. And then I want those tomatoes to disintegrate down a little bit. We're going to put the lid back on for about another 10 minutes. I really like having some recipes in my repertoire which you can kind of relax while you're cooking. It's really forgiving. It doesn't matter if you burn things, if you char them, it actually adds flavour. I'd say we're up on about 10 minutes though, so I'm going to check on the tomatoes. These are looking really great. We're going to make 4 little pockets here. So these are going to be ready in no time, maybe about a minute or so. So I'm going to quickly chop my spring onion and my coriander ready for the top for garnish. Take that off the heat before the eggs cook any further. Then we're going to go loads of spring onion and then some coriander at the end. So all we've got left is to add some bread. It's a really perfect dish for sharing and really, really yummy. Karen, Mick?
For a second there, I thought you were going to call me by my full name, and that meant I was in trouble. Look at that. What's this?
So this is Berber eggs, really nice brunch dish, loads of runny yolk. Moroccan inspired. Get stuck in.
That looks absolutely gorgeous. Can we?
Yeah, dip
it
away,
feels like
yeah.
a shame to kind of.
So hang on, like eggs,
my
clearly
God,
Nicky's eggs, I believe.
Yeah.
Nicky Kelly's eggs.
Nicky
yeah.
Kelly. What else,
And
Katie?
So you've got loads of onions, caramelised, garlic, tomatoes from the greenhouse outside, your eggs, and then loads of coriander and spring onion. It's quite simple. There's not too much in it. One pot wonder, not too much washing up. Yeah.
Did you think that they were much better than the ones you buy in the shop, or
Taste-wise?
taste-wise? Yeah.
What I really love about working with onions that have been grown, like homegrown, is that they're the basis of so many recipes. And I think once you start off with that basis of like really good quality, organic, vegetables, then you can kind of take it loads from there.
Bottom line with onions, you've got a veg that is really good value for space. You can grow a lot in a very small space.
Yep.
They're almost 100% reliable, particularly when you're growing them from set. There's that, like, storability, if that's even a word about onions, that's amazing.
Storability.
Yeah.
What's the thing? Another
Let's end
Michael
on that.
Kelly word. Yeah. Well, no, let's end on more
Let's
food.
end on more
Thanks
of
very
this.
much. Yum.
Triple dipping now.
While we stuff our faces, why not log on to growcookie.ie for all the info you need to get busy with growing onions.
See you next week back in Grow HQ. We'll be growing pumpkins, a giant of the veg world.
Grow Cook Eat is proudly sponsored by StopFoodWaste.ie and Bord Bia.